Welcome to Distill the Bourbon Podcast. I'm Brent. I'm here with my co-hosts, Chuck and Brian, and I don't know what in the hell is going to happen today because we have an amazing episode for you. This is going to be, fellas, this is going to be our update to the first, best, and last episode. If you haven't heard that yet, you should go back. I'll put a link in the show notes below. Go back and listen to that episode. But we have a turret full of people here today, don't we, Chuck?
This is absolutely going to be a freak show. We have some of the most bizarre whiskeys I've ever seen assembled and some of the most bizarre guests I've ever seen assembled.
Some very loud guests, by the way.
Yeah. So you guys know Brian. He owns 4 liquor stores. He's an American veteran, amazing guy.
That's debatable.
Fantastic entrepreneur. He and his wife are doing great things. You know, Chuck, our Kentucky Hall of Fame journalist, our walking encyclopedia of all things interesting. He is the man. And we have 3, not just 1, but 3 special guests today. And our first is John Wilkie. John, we have been wanting to have you on the show. Welcome, my friend. You are a true fan of the show, and we're just glad to have you here, my brother.
Well, it's truly an honor to be here. I am a fan of the show, and in spite of the guests that we have with us today, but I am truly honored to be here, and I've been really wanting to do this for a long time.
Yeah. So tell us just a little bit about yourself. What have you done in life, and you know.
I know.
Yeah, I know. Everybody's
wait.
So are you retired, John?
So I have retired. I retired in 2017 from Edward Jones, and retired now, just taking care of grandkids, 6 grandkids, and I
drink
cook a lot.
Okay.
I drink a lot. I clean house an awful lot, and
A lot of water.
Is it the grandkids that's causing you to drink a lot?
Because I've got 3 kids.
exactly.
Now, Brian and Chuck both knew you before the show started, I believe.
No, actually, I didn't.
Oh, you didn't?
No.
You and I met when we went to Brian's new place, Captain
Right.
Cork.
Brian and I met before the first podcast. And after the first podcast.
It was after the first
It was
podcast.
right after
Yeah.
the first podcast. And I went and introduced myself because I was impressed. I wanted to see what
Well,
was going
I heard
on.
somebody talking about the podcast. I said, somebody's actually listening to us? I got to go meet this guy.
Here's the one
was.
guy.
Wow.
Here's the one.
I met Brian and started right then.
Yeah. And Chuck, you know everybody in town
I
anyway.
remember when John Wilkie was the only Edward Jones agent in the community, and now there's
7.
there we go.
7.
Yeah, 7.
All right.
It's all started
When I
with
retired-
John.
Including his son.
Yeah, when I retired in 17, I was able to bring 3 more in. So that was my kind of my claim.
We
to
are
fame.
so glad you're here, man.
Thank you.
We're going to drink some bourbon and tell some
Appreciate it.
tales here in just a second. But let me introduce great friend of the show, personal friend, Brad Schneider.
I'm sitting next to Jimmy Buffett on one side.
That's right.
He is. And, Marcia Clark.
Exactly.
On the other side.
Marsha Clark.
Marsha.
A winner. Might I add. So,
Well, Brad, it's great to have you. Kurt, my friend, things have
Good to
happened in
be
your
back.
life since the last time I talked to you.
yes, they have 2 grandkids, this and that, some lawyering,
Traveling the world.
Right, exactly. When I heard that John Wilkie was going to be on the show, I figured we were going to ply him with enough bourbon that he would explain crypto to us and which one to buy.
No way.
What?
No way.
No?
way.
Oh, man.
Invest in bourbon.
All I want to say at the beginning of this show, all right?
Yeah.
It's already hot up here, and I was the last one here, so you can't blame all the hot air on the lawyer. Just saying.
Kurt Hamilton, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks so much for having me
There you
back.
go.
Seriously, I've had a great time. The last time we told some stories and tried some cool things, and I was convinced that what I thought I loved, I didn't like as much as now the stuff that I know I love.
Right,
So
right.
it's
That's all about
Well, you're not going
That's what
to
it's
you're
all
not going to
about,
have to
right.
drink any white label today at all unless you want to. So
Thank you. Just can't do Jim Beam White Label. You'll have to listen to episode 14, season 1 to figure out that story.
I got it.
Can't do it.
So we're going to start with the updates of our first, best, and last. And I'm going to share my last story. You guys know that I talk about my buddy Kevin, my brother from another mother, all the time. Several of you have met Kevin.
Nice guy.
Great guy, lives in Louisville. He finally is getting married or has gotten married to his longtime girlfriend, Irina, who is a fantastic, beautiful lady, very smart, just a perfect couple. One of my favorite couples in the world. They're getting married. So Jennifer and I decided to invite ourselves to Louisville to give them their wedding presents. And, Jennifer does some of this.
Let me guess. You gave them bourbon.
I did give them bourbon, but I also gave them a little 2-liter barrel to make barrel-aged Manhattans. And if you haven't heard that, that one.
Fancy.
Yeah, so bourbon and Carpano Antica. Did I say that even close to correctly, Chuck? Thank you. So we invite ourselves to Louisville. We go over there early on Saturday. And we've never been to their house before. A beautiful house on a reclaimed golf course in Louisville. Picturesque, it has a little stream going down the back. It looks like we're in Gatlinburg. European gardens. Irina is from Russia originally, and she's lived all over the world, Japan, Germany, just a wonderful woman and great at decorating. And Kevin's just a nice guy, and it's very lucky to have her. So we go to their house, meet them. And of course, the first thing you do is you get a tour of the house, right? So the girls go one direction and we go another, and we go straight to the first bar. And the first bar.
Did you say the first bar?
The first bar is key. Yes.
Not the second or third. The first.
That's true.
Kevin.
Yeah, Kevin is a guy, man. We go to the family room and he shows me this bar, and it's like, oh, this is cool. There's some good stuff here, Kev. I like this. And he picks up a bottle and, have you ever tried this? Have you ever tried that? And that's Brad, who actually added water to a VanWinkle in his glass, and he still can't take it. So
give me some more of that.
So he's showing me all these things, and I think, well, that's very cool, Kev. I really like your bar. And he says, oh, okay. Well, let's go downstairs. And we go downstairs, and he takes me to his man cave. This room is freaking filled with bourbon bottles. I mean, Brian, he has as many bourbon bottles as you do, I'm pretty sure. At least the number of labels. Holy smokes. He's got everything from JTS Brown all the way up to the most hard to find allocated bottles. The
Full
guy
or not?
He's a drinker. He's not a collector.
Okay. All right.
So he's a good guy. He doesn't mind having a bourbon pour every once in a while. And we talk about every brand that there is. And, we're talking about everything that comes out of Buffalo Trace and every other distillery. And he's a very humble guy. And he says, well, let me show you this one. And he pulls out this bottle that looks like a bottle of Hennessy, kind of a short, squat bottle. And I take a look at it, and I'm holding it in my hands, and I realize what I'm looking at. It is a private stock of the VanWinkle family that is not for sale. It is their own selection that they give out.
Really?
Yeah.
So it's what the man goes around like sharing with his friends.
Well, I didn't expect to have a taste. This is so special. I immediately took a picture of it and sent it to Brian and Chuck and said, have you ever seen this? And I don't think you guys have seen that kind of bottle or label before, have you?
No.
So it says Old Rip Van Winkle, bottled expressly for, and then it has a company name. It's a payroll company in Louisville. And Kevin says, yeah, the company that does my payroll, they share space in the same building as the VanWinkle family. And so they get these, and they were nice enough to give me one. And damn, that's nice. It's awesome. Good to have friends. And so we go on and we talk about other bottles, and we're looking at all of his E.H. Taylors. He's got all of them, and we go back upstairs and find the girls, and we start opening wedding gifts and that kind of stuff. And he says, well, you want to pour? And I said, yeah. He said, what do you want? I said, it's your house, man. You just pour whatever you want. He comes back with a VanWinkle bottle that has this handwritten label to this one company. And I'm thinking, oh, man, I've never had VanWinkle that I've really liked. And I don't want to insult my very good friend Kevin.
Wait, hold on.
No, I think it's overpriced. I think it's not the best bourbon in the world.
When Brian starts selling it for $30 a bottle, though, you're probably going to buy some.
Of course, for that price.
Well,
let him finish. Let him finish. I want to hear this story.
I do too.
Well, before I serve you some VanWinkle, which I'm about to do, maybe I'll reconsider buying bottles. But So he pours this, and of course I smell it, and the nose is nice, man. It's not peppery at all. It's very, very nice. And I take some, and he drinks some, and we look at each other, and it's like, Kevin, this is good, man. He says, yeah, it's way better than what I remember. He'd opened the bottle before. It's way better than what I remember. And we taste it again. It's like, Kevin, I think this is the best bourbon I've ever had in my life. And to that point, it was the best bourbon I had ever had in my life. I said, Jennifer, you got to try this. And she did. And so, that's really nice. And Kevin, of course, being the gentleman, says, would you like a pour? She said, yes. She got about twice as much as I did. And I got a little pissed about that. But, she didn't give me a sip back. But, so we finished that. It was a lovely, wonderful, you know how we've talked about on the show several times that the fraternity of sharing bourbon is something magical and special. Would you agree with that?
That's what it's
Oh,
for.
yeah.
That's what it's all about.
That is what it's for.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the estimated value of that bottle, would you say?
Oh, I think it's priceless because you can't buy it. I have no
Can't
idea
find
what
it.
it would be.
I would say $10,000-$15,000.
Yeah.
Probably on the low end.
Yeah.
For a real collector.
So how would he have gotten it?
So he uses the payroll company that was gifted this bottle. They were gifted 6, and he got one of them because they knew he
What
was
are they doing
That's
giving him?
awesome.
It's a $15,000 plus gift. He must have been a heck of a customer.
right. Well, I don't know. He's a good businessman, a good customer. He's just a super nice guy.
That's awesome.
Kurt,
So,
do you give
Kurt,
bottles of Pappy out to good customers?
No.
I
You get the white label.
I was a customer. I didn't even get the white label.
right. That's
if
right.
I'm heard, I'm going to call Kurt.
Yeah.
You can reinvest
That's
it in more
true.
liquor stores.
He
So-
must be
That's right.
a good friend.
So-
Right.
So I don't have that bottle. But what I do have is a Pappy 10-year that we've poured for everyone, and this is the closest that I can get to it. So
Just to be sure, not a Pappy.
I'm sorry, it's a VanWinkle.
Rip VanWinkle.
Thank you very much. You're right.
Which,
It's a
to the
VanWinkle.
uninitiated, is more or less the same.
More or
A
less.
Pappy or a old Rip Van Winkle.
It was just the age.
Right.
But Brent,
all right.
you got to pitch this to me because I when we were thinking about update of first, best, and last, first, last, and best, I don't think the first can change, right?
Right.
For our initial story, but mine can because as I was thinking about your topic, I decided to do first, last, and best experiences with Pappy
Nice.
or Van Winkle in the family.
All right, hold
So-
on. I'm sorry to interrupt, but not that much. There's not an actual difference. Old Rip Van Winkle is Pappy. Everybody
I know.
calls
I
this
defer to
Pappy
Chuck.
all the time, right?
Same mash bill?
Yeah.
No, it's the same stuff.
Yeah.
Well, so is Weller, right?
Right.
But Pappy is Pappy if it says Old Rip Van Winkle
Same family.
on the bottle.
Same
right?
So there's a committee.
We're going to turn to our friend.
age. Rip VanWinkle is a 10-year-old, and from starting at 12-year-olds is called Pappy. Just talking
So-
about the label.
The bottle actually says Pappy, Old Pappy Van Winkle. I'm so sorry, Brad. I guess
That's
you're
all right.
sidetracked.
No, that's all right.
I said no.
Yeah, starting at
It's
12
a
years
good,
old, right?
it's a
12
good
years old,
question because people see this bottle, it's a Rip Van Winkle, and it's 10 years, and they if they're not initiated, they don't know that it's from the same family as Pappy. But it's great bourbon, and it's similarly priced. It's Pappy on its way up to best.
So I want to hear your first, best, and last
So
Van Winkle story.
First experience with Pappy in my life, and I'm not from Kentucky. I came to bourbon late, so this will be disappointing to some people, but it happened in late March of 2012 when I had made a trip to Frankfurt to lobby in the General Assembly for the building of I-69, which is a very
Which we're
important
getting. Thank you very
interstate
much.
development.
Thank you, Brad.
Admirably well.
Thank you very
and
much.
In Western Kentucky,
Judge?
for those of you who live on interstates, you're spoiled because here in Kentucky we didn't. Western Kentucky we didn't. But that year, March 12th, we got confirmation that it was moving up to a point in the state road plan that would actually get built. And at the end of that day, we were high-fiving the group that was with me. We were excited. And we went down to a restaurant in downtown Frankfurt called Serafini, which is well known.
Mm-hmm.
And we sidled up to their very nice bourbon bar, and they had a bottle of 12-year-old Pappy on the shelf. And we said, what the heck? This is a great day after years and years of working at this, so we're going to celebrate. And we pulled down that 12-year-old bottle among 4 or 5 guys, started having a taste, and we went 1 round, we went 2 round, and that is when, at that point, we came up with our slogan that we were going to put on T-shirts for the I-69 project from here on out, and that was I-69, and you should too. And I don't think
Everyone's a winner.
I don't think
Everyone loves that.
I don't think those T-shirts ever really got made, but we were determined if we ever did.
I don't remember
That
voting
was
on
going
that
to
at
be
the
the
Chamber of
slogan.
Commerce. Did you?
And that was a Pappy-infused bit of brilliance. It was inspirational. And to this day, I'll never forget Serafini and having my first taste of Pappy VanWinkle.
Fantastic.
There you go.
There you
Everyone's
go. That's a
winner.
great story,
Yeah,
man.
Everyone's a winner.
You get that.
So-
I-69, and you should too. I think it's catchy.
So what do you guys think of this 10-year VanWinkle? It's a little peppery, of course.
It's a weeded bourbon.
Yeah.
It
How
should.
can it be pepper?
You know what?
vanilla.
This tastes like my favorite bourbon, Weller Special
what's-
Reserve.
I'm
It tastes like
curious.
Weller to me.
What is the proof?
107.
107. So as I remember,
Tastes like
Pappy,
antique, but smoother.
it's usually less than 100, isn't it? It's in the 80s or the low 90s. Does it reach 100 typically?
How many shots did you have at the I-69 and you should too?
2. I had 2.
Ah, okay.
I don't remember them being this hot.
So to be honest with
Speaking
you,
of
There's a bottle up there, but I can't
don't-
see it.
I think they're all over 100. To be honest with you,
hot.
I don't know that.
shows you what I know.
Now, one thing I would recommend is I never start off my palate with something that this good, because your initial drink, opening up your palate, your palate isn't typically used to drinking 100 proof bourbon. So I open my palate up with something either 80 proof or something that isn't as good a
So you go
quality
from
as
like
this.
Something that you
Basil
can improve
Hayden
up
up to
to.
this.
Either that or I'll go with a cheaper bourbon that's 100 proof. Old Granddad, for instance.
good. Yeah.
Open up my palate, let it set,
Yeah.
and then I'll pour a good bourbon. Because then my palate's like, okay, now we're used to this high proof bourbon, and then I'll get the next pour of like
I gotta be
Pappy.
honest, right? That night, I went right into
Yeah.
it. Despite it, to throw it down. I can't say that I was disappointed, but this is got a little bite.
It's not bad at all. It's pretty good.
107 proof. I read 107.
It's one of those special bottles that you should have and use on special occasions
gonna-
like
not yet.
I-69.
When you post this online, I'd love to see in the comments other people's experience first time tasting Pappy. Was it as good as you thought? And Brent says it's not his favorite.
It's not my favorite.
And number 2, was it worth the cost?
I would say,
Remember shots being $60, or one pour $60.
from my experience,
yeah.
most people are liars. So perception is reality.
What'd you say?
Most
Liars
people
or lawyers? I missed it.
Yes.
I wasn't paying close attention.
Say
lawyers are liars, right? Thing.
Same damn thing.
They're
They gotta clean the gum
they go in. But most people, they see the bottle, it's a unicorn. They can't get it, so they automatically assume it's just.
They gotta be.
It's got to be great.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
it's so hard to get. It's got to be that good. And in my opinion, it's not. I mean, it's way
I
overpriced.
agree with you.
It's
I think it's overpriced.
it's
But that's
hyped.
bourbon. All bourbon's
Right.
getting to be overpriced.
Well, and the funny thing is, you ask about your first experience with Pappy for the price. We keep talking about for the price. My first experience with Pappy was it was somebody else's bottle, so I would think that would
Yeah.
be hopefully most of our experiences
I've never
with
owned
the
a
very
bottle.
first.
I haven't either.
I've never owned
I
a
You
have.
bottle.
know,
Uh-huh.
I
Yeah.
haven't either. I thought it was overpriced. It tastes like really good bourbon, but man, you know. And I see the bottle on Brent's wall here in the turret. It is a picture of Pappy VanWinkle,
Yeah.
and it says Pappy VanWinkle across the top. Thus, the name Pappy.
That's a
Correct.
14-year, I believe.
Okay.
Okay, so Brian, you're our retail expert when it comes to bourbon at this table. Where can a regular Joe even buy a bottle of Pappy VanWinkle?
Justin's House of Bourbon for the low
That's it?
price of $5,000.
That's
you're
it.
lucky.
No, I'm
No.
talking
Seriously,
just,
like
just
most.
10-year.
Beverage Barn between 8 and 8:01 a.m. on January 3rd.
So we don't do that.
2025.
We raffle ours off. So most liquor stores, it goes out the back door. A lot of these bottles
Right.
are going to nonprofits.
To buddies. Oh,
No, to nonprofits. Because nonprofits like Habitats, for instance, they have a big budget that they can spend $15,000 for a collection.
Because those
of
raffles are going
Pappy.
to produce a lot more.
Oh, they're going to produce a lot more. So
So
that
Tax benefits.
you
So,
know, it's
I'll
great.
share an experience with that. Kurt Hamilton did an amazing job emceeing an auction.
He did.
Yes,
That was a hoot.
yeah.
And
That
we
was a
had such a good time at this auction that I bid, I think it was $3,000 for the same bottle that I
I
have
kept telling
right
you, I
here.
said-
And I still lost.
Yes, you did.
I'm glad you did. 'cause
I'm glad I did
Another
too.
pharmacist.
I know.
Woo!
I
That
know.
was, that was great, though.
I hope John likes that bottle. I'm glad he got it and I didn't.
Did
But,
Brian
Recognize
McDaniel
TNT drugs.
donate that bottle?
I think he did. Yeah.
Yes. Good
Isn't
for you.
that 12, awesome?
Yeah.
So what you're saying is a regular person cannot buy Pappy VanWinkle.
There's a lot of millionaires that can't even get their hands on Pappy. It's that
rare.
For
elusive.
those
yeah.
who might not know, Justin's House of Bourbon, if you're listening, it's a specialty bourbon shop downtown Louisville, very well known.
And downtown
most-
Lexington.
And
Yes.
Fantastic place.
it has a ton of what's called estate bottles.
Yep.
They hunt for people who have passed away and have bourbon in their basement and might be willing to sell to somebody like Justin's, and they sell it. They sell it again, and it goes for thousands. And
So not
thousands.
only do they have those, they have unicorn bottles, but they also have regular everyday bottles. Like I bought a Nulu Toasted. That's one of my favorite
really
toasted bottles over there. And you can go in and you can get pours.
Yes.
So if you can't afford a $3,000, $5,000, $10,000 bottle, you can still go
Yes.
get a $20 or $40
Yeah.
pour and it have the experience. And it's just a beautiful place. If you haven't heard our interview, go back and find that
Right.
It's
that
fantastic.
episode.
Yeah.
It
One of the
was
first episodes.
First
yeah,
few,
it
And-
was.
Yeah,
But it's like a museum if you want to see rare
Yeah.
bottles.
Yeah,
the
it's
back
great.
half is behind glass. Can't
Right.
get back there, and it is like a museum of really good bourbon.
And if you have enough money, they will sell
They-
you anything you want.
I asked, I don't know if it was Justin or not, but I asked him, "Is that stuff for sale behind that glass?" He said, "Brad, everything's for sale. You can buy the whole dang place if you get the right offer."
So Justin's House of Bourbon reminds me of a story I heard a long time ago. Someone describing Playboy magazine. They compared it to National Geographic. You get to look at pictures of things you're never going to see.
You're never going to get your hands on it.
Yeah, exactly.
You're
So,
definitely never going to get your hands
I
on
hope
that.
you guys have all had. Have you all enjoyed your VanWinkle?
That was very nice.
Pour
You know,
your
and it's
pour
great,
yourself
too,
some Kentucky Owl, because this is the next part of my story. So after this amazing VanWinkle, which was the best bourbon I had ever had in my life, we continued to enjoy Kevin and Irina and their company. Kevin says, "You want another pour?" And I said, "Yes, please," thinking that maybe I'm going to get some more VanWinkle. And he says, "Well, maybe we'll try this Kentucky Owl." And I'm thinking, "Oh man, everything I've ever heard about Kentucky Owl was it's overpriced and it's good juice, but not amazing juice." You know what I mean? So that's what I had heard. And so he brings out this Kentucky Owl bottle that I'd never seen before. It has a green label. He says, "Have you ever seen this?" I said, "No." It's a St. Patrick's Day special edition.
Rare.
Of Kentucky. Very rare. They only issue it. This is actually series 1.
Ooh.
It's typically goes for $125 in the Louisville area. He said he found some in Pensacola for like $99 a bottle around the military base. And so he poured some, and I thought, okay, well, this is cool. Looking at the bottle, it's basically a blend of different bourbons,
Definitely a blend.
and it's in the style that the Irish whiskey makers would blend their whiskeys, but it's all with
I did not
Kentucky
know that.
bourbons.
It's a blend.
This one is a blend,
Most of
okay,
them
A
are.
machine. I mean,
and it's with a very famous Bonder, Irish whiskey Bonder.
Or blender.
It says Bonder on the label,
Okay.
so I think it's the same thing as a blender. So he pours this, and I thought, well, I got to drink it. I mean, this is my buddy Kevin. I don't know what to say after I've had the best bourbon I've ever had, but okay, I'll
Same
try
night,
it.
The same night you were pouring this.
Yeah, this was 30 minutes later after we finished our
Drank some good
our,
bourbon that
the
night.
first,
our first
first
bourbon.
bottle of Pappy went.
Yeah. So if you would take a little sniff of this
It's
and
100 proof,
see
100
what you think. Yeah.
Okay, I gotta ask.
I really like it.
That burst on the scene just a few years ago. Is that right?
Yeah, about
Is that sourced bourbon?
it is.
Okay.
What do you mean by source bourbon, John? Do you know?
I don't.
So you haven't gotten a word in edgewise yet.
I'm
Welcome to the show.
buddy.
So Source essentially is they don't produce it themselves. So they contract. They have somebody distill it for them.
Is that Bardstown Bourbon Company juice?
I don't know.
So this is made in Owensboro.
They're not going to tell you.
Yeah.
They're not going to tell you where
Which
it's
means
made.
it's made in Owensboro.
Does it say, where does it say
Well,
distilled
it
at?
could be made in
Or
Indiana.
Bardstown, yeah.
Go ahead.
Does it say distilled in Indiana? Because if it says distilled in Indiana, it's MGP.
I don't know. I can't read it. Who's got reading
I
glasses?
doubt it's MGP though. I'm pretty sure it's a Heaven Hill product. But most of the Source whiskey nowadays is coming out of MGP. Heaven Hill and a lot of the big brands in Kentucky, they're not selling much of their whiskey more because they understand that the value of these older whiskeys, they can make a lot more money themselves as opposed to selling them off.
Okay,
So
two questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
How old is this? How old was this blend, or how old would it be? Is it a 4 or 5 year old?
So it's a blend. So that means that there's different barrels
Right.
at different
I think
age.
it's
different ages.
4 to
Okay.
8 years, I think
Okay.
is what it says on the bottle.
Okay. All right. So within Bardstown Bourbon Company,
It couldn't be Bardstown because they don't have any 8-year-old juice. So-
Nope.
No, they're
they're all
At
5.
Bardstown
4 or
Bourbon
5.
Company, they told me that it's either Cream of Kentucky or Kentucky Owl that they make there. And Cream of Kentucky is another kind of high price newcomer to the scene.
yeah, that's Jim Rutledge.
Yeah.
Well, let me say this. I don't care where it's made or how it's blended. It's the best damn bourbon I've ever had in my
That's
life.
a great point. So I think just like you shouldn't automatically think that Pappy is the best, maybe we shouldn't think that Source Bourbon is potentially the worst.
That VanWinkle was the best
right.
I'd had for 30
Good
minutes, and then I had this, and by golly, it's even better. I loved it.
This is 100 proof?
It's 100 proof, but it's super smooth.
Really?
It doesn't
It's
taste-
nice, man.
I agree.
Chuck, what do you think about this one?
Okay. When I first nosed it, I found it to be really musky.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, man, this is not going to work out. But it has had a few minutes to sit, and now the nose is very pleasant. So
Sweet.
I'm not sure if I'm ready to go sweet. A lot of people will say that if you want to seriously taste some whiskey, pour it in a tasting glass, let it sit for a few minutes. Some of that ethanol is going to evaporate.
Sure.
So my first nose was like, I'm not going to like this. I actually now find it to be pretty mild in terms of the taste.
What's the price on this bottle?
Anywhere from 99 to 125.
So when you say, I mean, it's funny when we have bourbons and you try something new that you haven't had. I mean, this is clearly different than Pappy VanWinkle.
It is.
And Pappy is good. Most everyone can agree. Yeah, it's whatever. It's still really good. All right. So we have Kentucky Owl, and I'm looking around here. There are 100 bourbon bottles here. How do you know?
Empty bottle.
Right?
Yeah.
Elijah Craig
worked
single
on it.
barrel. I go to Beverage Barn. I buy a handle of that. I love it. I think.
Yeah.
How do I know that Kentucky Owl is better than Elijah Craig?
You know,
I don't know.
What do
You
you
know
like,
what I'm
brother?
saying? I mean, that's like
Taste.
the great thing about bourbon.
one of the things that I think drives that first, best, and last is who you drink it with, and
No question.
All
and
about
what's the situation.
You were having a great experience with your
Right.
friends.
Exactly.
So you had a great experience, and there's nothing wrong with
It
that.
gets right back to my story about the first.
Yep.
We were in a good mood.
Right.
man.
yeah, you're in a
Ready
good
to
mood.
celebrate.
Yeah, man.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And
I mean,
this is a
fantastic.
special bottle to me, and it will be for the rest of my life. And this is Series 1. Every year it comes out, whenever it comes out. If I can convince my favorite, liquor store owner to save me a bottle, I will buy as many as I can because of that experience. It's
Right.
not just the juice; it's the experience, and
The memories
it's
that
my
you made with
absolute
that.
favorite
Yeah.
one.
Yeah,
And that's what bourbon is. And the funny thing is, you can have a $5 bottle of Kentucky Tavern Special or whatever it is.
Ooh,
And,
KT.
and if it's a blind taste test, you might think, well, that's unique. This seems to be a good super.
Yeah.
I thought so in
and
high
it-
school.
Right. And it could be like
That's
the
when you're
Henderson
drinking for
bourbon
effects,
or
though.
whatever. And it could be, you could think it's great. To me, all right, I don't have a great palate. It's one of those deals. I like what I like. And when I drink good bourbon, it's okay. I like that. I don't care if it's
Well,
$25
did you like
or
did you like
$300.
Kentucky Owl?
Yeah, I do.
The St. Patty's, I think, is fantastic.
I also like Michters.
Yeah.
Man, maybe I've just burnt off too many of my taste
buds?
buds or something.
Well, look, here's another part of it.
I mean, seriously.
Here's a figurative analogy. Your favorite bourbon could be like your favorite sports team. It may not be metrically, look, I don't like the New York Yankees. I'm a St. Louis Cardinals fan. I'm a National League fan. I love the quote from back in, I think, the 1950s. Rooting for the Yankees is like rooting for U.S. Steel. You know, I am just, my mother-in-law loves the Yankees. God bless her that she can enjoy the Yankees. Enjoy what you enjoy.
Amen.
I thought the Kentucky Owl, my first nose at it was like, I'm not going to like this. I let it breathe a little bit, and it's a nice taste. I'm not sure it's my favorite bourbon ever, but I wasn't at Kevin's house. Right. And by the way, I love the idea. In Kentucky, you hear the word reclaimed, and you're thinking strip mine.
Right.
So
Amen.
They have a house on a reclaimed. No, their neighborhood is so nice. It's on a reclaimed golf course.
Yeah,
It is.
with
It's super
a brook
nice.
behind.
That's right. That's right.
You know what? I catch licorice in the aftertaste.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. I burped a minute ago and I felt it.
Yeah.
You know, so John, you said earlier you love bourbon. You're an experienced bourbon drinker. When you go to a liquor store, do you think, oh gosh, I'm not getting a blend, or I want something that I know where it came from. I know the rick house. I can picture it in my mind because I've been there. Or are you like, hey, this got pretty good reviews on Google. I think I'll go with a blend.
That's a fair question.
That is a good question. I like to go to Breaking Bourbon and get some things that they have and look at recommendations that they have, and they're always pretty good.
That's a
to me.
website.
Well,
It's called Breaking
website.
Bourbon Review.
Do you feel like that prompts you though? It's like if they think it's good, are you going to think it's good?
Well, what it does is it gives me a universe to go and sample. Okay.
Fair point.
Okay. And so, and then I listen to guys like Brian and Chuck and Brent, and I get ideas. An example, Cooper's Craft.
Yeah.
Is that not
Hey,
awesome?
so one of
That
the
is
things
so
we talked
good.
about, John, was you weren't supposed to bring that up.
It's so good. Am I wrong about that?
It's great.
Am I
It's
wrong about
great.
that?
I agree with John though that part of the fun of bourbon is trying new stuff.
Part of
Yeah.
the fun of bourbon is it's fun.
It is fun.
It's fun.
It is.
Yeah,
And who
like
you with and all that.
One of my heroes, Christopher Hitchens, says, "Don't do narcotics. It makes you less interesting. The grape and the grain make you more interesting."
There you
so, anyway,
Yeah.
And louder.
yeah, one of the things I love about Distilled and hanging out with Chuck and Brian and Brent is they make it okay in my mind to try stuff because you don't have to be locked into the best 10 brands you've ever heard.
Right.
You know? And that's what
No
turned me on to
question.
like
Yeah.
Bourbon Rabbi, which has quickly become
great.
one of my favorite bourbons.
It is
Bourbon
And
Rabbi
which-
is
which
fantastic.
I guess it's making a staple in the community because I got people asking for it. Like seriously,
Fantastic.
weekly.
Good.
man. You know, so Pappy's
You
great.
can't get it, though,
Pappy's
can you?
great, but you can't get Pappy's. So what are you going to do instead?
Yeah.
And I'm going to try stuff that you three recommend, and I see on
There
the
you go.
shelf, and that's fun too. So
But then go to places like Breaking Bourbon, like the Distiller's website. They've got some great reviews of some really
I agree.
interesting
So,
stuff.
of course, this is Chuck. My whole approach is go to the distillery,
Yes.
which I'm doing tomorrow again, going to one of my favorite.
nobody's been to more distilleries than Chuck's.
Nobody.
Well,
Been to
Nobody.
every one of them.
Where are you going tomorrow?
Yeah.
Right?
We're going to Wilderness Trail in Danville. It is, these people are amazing. They're expert yeast people, yeast proprietors. They're, yeast scientists and mechanical engineers.
Are they gynecologists too?
And they happen to make great.
Wait, hold on, Mr. 69. Oh, that was a bad segue.
I'm sorry.
I feel like we're going to get edited.
Yeah. Go ahead, Chuck. I'm sorry.
I love to go to the distillery to have the experience. I've discovered some great bottles there. Oddly enough, on occasion, I have gone and tasted something. It's like, oh, I really like this bottle, and brought it home and tasted it at home. It's like, boy, I made a mistake there. That's the rarity.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the rarity. Mostly, I have gone to, and I'll just go ahead and name them: Wilderness Trail, Rabbit Hole. We talked earlier about Casey Jones, MB Rowland.
Oh, yeah.
We had great experience.
Get to know the people.
You get
Hear the stories.
And it's cool that they're the ones making it.
Yeah.
And so you have the experience, you bring it home. I absolutely believe that your taste changes day by day. I don't have the golden palate, but I know what I like.
Same.
So, you know, you don't have to be that guy.
Yeah,
you don't have to be the sommelier.
And for me, so my biggest thing with bourbon and, you know, Kentucky tourism is I like to go to the distillery. So the ones that are contract distilling, if I can't go and see them, their process and how they do their business, then I don't really trust them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Really?
It's kind of like
Yeah.
a restaurant. If you don't allow me in your kitchen to see how you do your food, then I don't really trust you.
No,
to
wait
be
a
honest with you.
second now, Brian.
I mean, if you're
You
like
go
in a
back
fried
into the kitchen of every
seafood place.
restaurant you go to?
I only
The
go
good ones.
The good ones. The good ones I will.
Are you kidding me?
I mean,
Nobody goes back
I'm,
in the
I'm
kitchen.
opening a restaurant for
I know,
God's sake.
but still.
Yes. All right. So we're
I
before
say-
we have
So
one of your
let's-
hamburgers.
You're getting too serious.
So we're going to
No. But the reason I say that is because
You're right, though.
for Kentucky, being a destination for bourbon tourism, it's bad for the industry, I think, with all these brands that are coming out with bourbon for $150
That's sourced.
that are sourced, and they have no intention of having a distillery. It's one thing if they have an intention of having a distillery. It's another thing if they have no ambition of opening a distillery.
Yeah, that's
You know,
I'm with
because
I'm with you.
where's the quality control? What do you know what you're really getting? It's kind of like Tito's. So I was disappointed. Tito's is the biggest gimmick of any spirit
Wait a minute!
in America.
Don't break my heart over
It's-
Tito's.
So I was in
It's
Texas.
vodka. They all
It
taste
is,
alike.
but it's the biggest joke ever, you know, with their pot still and everything. So when I was in Texas, I decided that I was going to go visit Tito's. I want to see how it's made. You know, it's in this pot still like Kentucky bourbon. Well, guess what? They don't allow tourism because guess why?
It's all calm
It's
still.
all-
It's all
made in
column
Russia.
still. It's
Yeah.
vodka. You can't have a pot still that makes vodka. It just makes zero sense because guess what? They would have very little vodka being made. And it's the number one vodka selling in America right now. So
it really?
it's the biggest joke. So that's marketing.
Yeah.
It is marketing.
It's
All of it.
delicious
So,
marketing.
Brett, for people who accidentally have listened to
Bourbon's
this,
marketing.
for people
It
who have
is.
listened to this now for 30 minutes on
Yes.
their pod, think, I thought this was a vodka podcast. Now they need
Now
to put the
you know.
vodka back in their
But what
in
this
their,
is about is
backpack.
authenticity,
And,
and the bourbon explosion has led to
Yeah.
fake distilleries.
So one thing I learned being in this business is the TTB, which controls everything on your label
What
as
is
far
the
as
TTB?
I don't know what
It's
it,
the federal agency. It's the
they regulate your label, you know, what it can and can't say. So basically what they do is say, all right, this is a 4-year bourbon, prove it. You know, so if it's not, then they'll say
Can't put
take
it
that
on your
off.
label. Yeah.
But one thing they don't regulate is the story. So Tito's
okay.
story, you can put anything you want on there. So if you ever go to Glens Creek, which I highly recommend, they basically make fun of Tito's. And they have a whole story behind it because they don't regulate anything that's on the label. So they have their own vodka.
Yeah.
And they have a story behind it, which I won't tell, but it's a very humorous story about Tito's and, you know, how they became to what they are today. But they have no regulation over the story of what you put on there. So you can basically put anything you want.
Well,
Does that hold for all
spirits.
All spirits.
They don't do a deep dive into any of the history, anything
So,
like that. It's
I'm going to
just-
pull us back a little bit to bourbon, mainly
enough
because
advertising.
Points well taken.
Enough advertising
Point-
for the
point is-
alcoholics.
point is
Right.
taken. But
Way to
by
step
God,
in
I
the
love Tito's, and I'm going to drink it. I'm going to keep buying that beverage barn. So,
So what was your first best best experience with Tito's?
well, listen, man, I'll have a dirty martini any day of the week. Okay, so. But I want to finish my Louisville story with Kevin and Irene. We're gonna speed up a little bit because you know it has been about 40 minutes. So we finish our exactly. So we finish our Kentucky Owl. I'm thinking, holy smokes! I've had the 2 best bourbons I've ever had in my life. Let's go have lunch. We go to Muscle and Burger, thanks to our friend Chuck over here who introduced that to us. Fantastic place on 7th Street in Louisville. If you haven't been there, go. It's amazing. We go. We sit down.
Old building.
Old
Old
building.
vibe is cool.
Beautiful bar.
Just off Whiskey Row.
Yes. Within walking distance of everything downtown.
Yep.
We go in. We order. The little girl comes up and the fine waitress comes up and says, Would you like to have a drink?
A
Yes.
server.
A server comes
Hey,
up.
come on, Colonel
Okay.
Chitlin.
Oi,
Exactly.
real
Exactly. And this person, she, I think, said, what would you like to drink? And I said, well, do you have a menu? Yes, here it is. There's 3 columns of bourbon. I quickly scan it. I said, oh, let's have some Blanton's. So she goes away, comes back and says, I'm sorry, we're fresh out of Blanton's. It's been very busy today. So I said, okay, no problem. How about some E.H. Taylor? She says, okay. She goes away. She comes back, says, I'm so sorry, we're out of E.H. Taylor.
This is a sad story.
And so I look at Kevin and I'm about to say, I'll have a Coke.
I'm about to
And
Woodford,
and
please.
Kevin says, how about McKenna Tenure? She says, well, let me go check. She goes over, she walks in and says, I'm so sorry, we're out of McKenna Tenure. So he says, okay, I know that you have Michter's American whiskey. And she says, I'll go check. She comes back with 2 glasses. And I'm thinking, okay, I've had the 2 best bourbons I've ever had in my life. We're having an American whiskey. I don't know what American whiskey means, but I'm going to drink it because I'm thirsty.
You've been
and-
shut down on every
and
other thing.
yes.
Right.
And
I don't care.
yeah, I want every other bourbon that there is on the menu. But apparently they only have 3 bourbons left. So
I'll take the American one, please.
yeah, exactly. So they bring this. It was fan-freaking-tastic. It was not as good as the others, but it paired great with the mussels and burgers that we had. I had an Italian burger and we had some Spanish mussels and some curry mussels, and it was very good. So I think,
So,
does everybody
American-
have
hey,
some?
Yep.
So wait, hold on. Spanish burgers.
No, Spanish.
Italian mussels.
Spanish mussels.
Yes.
Okay. I got it all
He
back.
didn't, yeah,
You gotta have American whiskey.
So to Brent's point, I want to say
you have any
that,
Michters?
and to Brian's point, Michter's does not produce bad anything.
No.
And their facility on Main Street in
Yeah.
Louisville, kind of colloquially known as Whiskey Row, is excellent. And if you are in Louisville and you want a good experience with a place that makes their own bourbon, both downtown and in another spot, I believe, Michter's, Michters, you will not be disappointed in their rye, in their American whiskey, and their bourbon. It's one of my favorites.
So Brian, tell us what an American whiskey is.
So American whiskey, basically, for Michters, is that they just reuse a barrel. So
Okay.
of course, if you're a
So
bourbon
it's a
lover,
bourbon mash in a used barrel.
in a used barrel. So of course,
Maybe a bourbon mash. Could be a rye mash.
could be a rye mash,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
So I looked on their website. I tried to do a little research. They do not give their mash bill, which
Very vague.
nowadays
Undisclosed.
a lot of distilleries aren't giving their mash bill because that's how a lot of craft distilleries did. They copied mash bills from bigger distilleries, and that's how they got started. So it's becoming more common that they don't give their mash bill.
Oh, there's nothing new under the sun. That's scriptural, by the way.
That's in the New Testimony, I think.
This tastes to me like it's uniquely different. It doesn't have sort of the strong flavor notes to me as Kentucky Owl did, which we just tasted, which had
Right.
to me it was
It's
it, like,
really
tasted-
mild. Very mild.
Yeah, it's mild.
Yeah,
it
yeah,
tasted
yeah.
like stronger.
So
like more
so
like
that's why most
hello.
Scotch and most Irish are very mild because they're used barrels.
Mhm.
And that's why
Okay.
bourbon
And
has
they're
all
80
these
proof.
bold, bourbon has all these bold tastes and bold flavors that you don't get from, these foreign whiskeys.
Right.
That's the main reason because Scotch, I mean, they reuse those barrels several times, and same with Irish
another
whiskeys.
thing about Scotch and Irish whiskey is that the temperatures in Ireland and Scotland don't vary much.
Right.
So
Very
very
chilly,
cool. So it takes longer for them to age.
Uh-huh.
And they typically, if you look at your very best single malts and your very best Irish whiskeys, they're still just 80 proof.
Right.
And they're very drinkable for a wider variety of people at 80 proof. So people love them for that reason. They describe them as very smooth, especially single malts.
Mhm.
Bourbon is more unique in the fact that those proofs go way up to 116, 120, partly because of the temperature variation that gives them more flavor. But
Well, also because they're not diluted down.
The
distilled-
water. Yeah.
But if somebody wants a 101 proof, they might start off with 119 proof.
90.
You just water it down. You want 100 proof. You want a 90 proof. You want a 86 proof. Yeah. You just add water.
I may be wrong about this, but if you look at even the very best single malts, the most expensive ones, they're all about 80 proof.
I'm not disagreeing, but with bourbon, it's because it's watered down.
Yeah. It's very rare that you find an Irish or Scotch that's at cast strength. I have a couple at my house. I have a friend of mine who's gotten me into like Scotch and Irish whiskeys. Not the real peated
there
Scotch.
You go again. You're not sharing with the rest of us.
I know. All right, Brent, do you have a couple of minutes for a quick story about Scotch whiskey? Right.
Absolutely, bring it.
So 20 years ago, my 4 kids were young, all right? So Christmas Eve, of course, we have things hidden elsewhere. Well, we had this big TV, so I needed to borrow a truck. And the predecessor to you guys here, Dr. Jim Esser, owned this house, and he had a truck, all right? I wrangled my brother-in-law, who was young at the time. His name is Jim Andy. Young guy, maybe 25 years old. I was like, hey, man, wake up. You got to help us, all right? So he's like, what? I was like, I need help carrying this stuff. So we come get the truck, get the TV, deliver it to the house. The kids are all asleep. It's a successful Christmas Eve. It starts snowing. We come right back here, and the Dr. Esser, who lived here, said, I have a bourbon collection, or I'm sorry, I have a Scotch collection, and I just got this stuff called Johnny Walker Blue that's supposed to be pretty good. And so we literally come right here to the turret.
Supposed to be pretty good.
He said it's supposed to be pretty good. Right. He's a unique sort.
Yes.
So he gets this bottle. He pops it open, and he pulls out these glasses, and he pours us like double shots. All right? He's like, supposedly this is good sipping stuff. Well, my brother-in-law, Jim Andy's like, boom, shoots it down, gone. Tastes like Jim Beam to me. I might need some more. And it's 2 a.m. on Christmas Eve.
Snowing.
I sipped it, and I was like, tastes like squeezed peat moss to me with an alcohol kick.
Yeah.
All right. But I said, so Doc, how much is this? He's like, I don't know, $500 a bottle. And I looked over at my brother-in-law. He's like, 500. I was like, how was that shot? Can I have another one? So that is my turn.
Yeah.
That is me drinking here 20 years
there
ago.
There is
in
history
your house.
in this turret, let me tell you.
Scotch.
Not a lot of it can be told, but there is a lot of history here. John, what do you think about the American whiskey?
I'm very impressed. Very impressed. I had not under any circumstances ever been exposed to it like that before.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like it.
You never had
like
Michters?
Chuck, is this something you would buy, or what do you think?
It's not unpleasant. I found it kind of middling. It's like, it's not going to disturb you. It's not going to excite you. It's
light.
It is kind of light.
It's very pleasant though.
And that's one of the reasons I really enjoy Kentucky bourbon. And anytime I'm talking to people that are from overseas, they talk about single malt scotches, just like Brad was talking about. They really enjoy them. And it's hard for them to even try a bourbon. Kind of like it's hard for me to go from bourbon to Scotch. But I think Kentucky bourbon is going to make an explosion overseas.
It's already doing it.
It's already doing it. Like Japan, there's certain markets in Asian markets that it's just exploding. And so I think we have a lot of growth overseas.
So all those noises you just heard were Brent knocking a microphone with a bottle of.
Yes, they were.
This to me, Chuck, is like the gin and tonic of bourbon, of whiskey, American whiskey. It's like the gin.
What, this O.K.I.?
No, the Michter.
No. Oh, the Michter. Okay, yeah.
It's very approachable.
What's not to love?
Anybody can drink it.
So we were eating mussels and burgers. So just imagine a group of us sitting around a table laughing and talking and loving life, and
it'd be fine.
And this is a perfectly smooth, normal.
Oh, yeah, it's great.
It's okay to have. And would I have liked to have the Blantons or the Taylors or the McKenna 10-year? Sure, but this was fantastic for the moment.
No complaints.
And let me tell you this, like that's my least favorite Michters. Actually, my favorite Michters my favorite bourbon of all time is Michter's 20-year.
Really?
Down, the best bourbon.
Is it possible to buy that?
That's your best?
It's impossible to find.
Impossible to find.
Yeah.
Impossible.
Never had.
What is the best Michters that you can carry at the store?
The best Michters that we get occasionally is Michter's 10-year.
10-year?
Yeah.
Okay.
But the 20-year, hands down, I've gotten one bottle since I've been in business.
Everybody who gets
and
a chance,
it's at
go to
your
that Michter's
house
downtown
It is.
shop and experience in Louisville. It's awesome.
It is.
So,
Can I tell you my
the 20-year
Pappy
Michters is at your house?
last experience?
Yeah, tell me the last experience.
Last experience
bring
with
it, I'll
Pappy
bring it.
was at, of all places, a winery. Farmer and Frenchman Winery is a
Oh,
very nice
fantastic
place in Henderson, Kentucky, and visit if you get the chance. And they happen to have a bottle of 10-year on their back bar. And I asked for a shot because I wanted to try it. I was in a mood that day. And I noticed that their bottle was almost gone.
Yeah.
And I had a pour, and then I went to the owner, who I know very well, and I said, when that bottle is gone, I'd like the empty bottle. And if any of you know this, there's a market for empty Pappy bottles.
Yeah,
Oh,
man.
God.
It's a black market.
Which I don't recommend, because most of those people are buying those or refilling it with something else.
It's funny you say that, because that's exactly what I did, and I'll tell you why. Of course it was. So I finally got a hold of the bottle, and my initial intent was to turn it in to a light. I wanted to, for my bar, I wanted to put string lights down in it and mount in such a way that it became kind of an interesting bar light. But I ended up doing that with a Booker's box. I did it with something else.
Oh, yeah.
And I had this empty bottle, and I decided to spoof on some people who might come to my house and be hoity-toity or haughty about their bourbon. And Chuck Stinnett, none other than Chuck Stinnett, had brought over to me a bottle of Old Tub.
Oh, yeah.
Old Tub. And
I got some stories about that.
Amen.
Also good stuff.
That's a Jim Beam product.
Yeah, that's
Is that
right. So I poured a good 3/4 of that bottle into the Pappy bottle and kept it on my back shelf until the next haughty person, who happened to be my 21-year-old son, who came in and decided that he was interested in expensive bourbon. And that guy barely had a job, but he was into expensive bourbon. And to prove a point to him that he didn't have to spend a lot of money if he wanted to do this, I gave him the bottle of Pappy / Old Tub, and I said, there you go, the best on the market. And he had it. He was going,
oh, it's so amazing.
That's fantastic.
You know?
Showing it
And I said, so here's the truth.
I get some vanilla on the nose.
Here's the truth about that. And I told him he was disappointed. But then we had a Super Bowl party not a couple months later, and Chuck Stinnett was with us. And there were a couple other people. And I proudly pulled that bottle of fake Pappy VanWinkle down, and I poured it around. And Chuck believed for a moment that that was actually Pappy VanWinkle. And he immediately goes, woo, that's kind of peppery for Pappy VanWinkle. He spoiled the whole damn thing.
Chuck, you and your palate.
Let me tell you.
And Kelly, my wife,
Party
said
pooper
immediately
palate.
pour that out. You don't need to be doing that anymore. So, but I have in my possession an empty bottle of Pappy VanWinkle that I'll soon be putting on eBay, by the way, for those of you who want to shop.
You
But
didn't actually pour it out, though.
here's an interesting thing. Chuck Stinnett loves the Old Tub.
Amen.
Me like
He
it Old
identified,
Tub.
he identified it quickly and had the other two people looking at me like, what is this? And I said, the jig is up. It didn't go off like I thought. But I proved the point. I think that people can, immediately think that whatever's in that bottle is going to be outstanding.
Yeah.
And it's not.
People
it's not
want what they
necessarily
can't get.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's right.
So
That's exactly right.
that's my last experience.
I love that.
$21,
Yeah, see, it's
$7.50.
awesome.
Old Tub.
You're talking about Old Tub.
It's not even on the bottom shelf anymore.
Are we allowed to talk about Cooper's Craft again? 'Cause
Sure.
John mentioned
No,
it.
John,
You don't like
John,
it?
I do like it.
John will not be on the show again.
We can't talk about anything except Demon-Brow.
What did you
We
say?
can't
That
talk
was
about it.
Franken whiskey?
So
Let me
it's
that. Okay.
the crazy thing about Cooper's Craft. I didn't
I'll
have
take it
room in
back.
my
I haven't
luggage.
had to pour that yet either.
We had a vacation in Belize in
Michters.
January. We were going diving. I didn't have room in my luggage for like a whole bottle of good stuff that I was like, wow, I'll just go to the duty-free store when we get to the airport. They had Jim Beam White Label, Jack Daniels, a Tennessee sipping whiskey, all right, which in a pinch
Yeah.
you have to tolerate.
Swill.
If you have
real fan.
Coca-Cola.
And
It's one of these.
Right.
Swill.
And Cooper's Craft, all right? And I
I
was
should
like,
have told you something.
oh, Cooper's Craft. There's Cooper's Craft at the airport in Belize. So
You people
I
with
bought
your
2
Spanish
bottles.
muscles in your Belize.
And
I tell you
yes, it was crazy. I could get it there. I was like, man, this is really good. It's really good.
I like to drink my whiskey in Bluff City, Kentucky.
So let me tell you, Cooper's Craft is a favorite of Distilled Bourbon podcasts.
I know it is.
And
It's fantastic.
we were so
I think our
stunned.
podcast is sponsored by Cooper.
Actually, I don't
I wish it
believe.
was.
Actually, can I get a word in here, please? I don't believe that mine was Cooper's Craft. I really don't. These guys
Denial.
complete denial.
I poured, and I'm a pharmacist. We're the most respected profession in the U.S., but as opposed to
Hands
lawyers.
down.
But
Exactly. Lawyers, liars.
Darn drug
So
dealers,
I'm gonna-
politicians, car salesmen. We're all the same.
Yeah.
So I don't think anybody else is listening at this point. We're 55 minutes in, but just in case that happens, there is one more bourbon I had with Kevin and Irina,
And
it was the
freak show.
last one. It
Oh my
is a
gosh.
freak show. It is O.K.I. Reserve, and it is a mix of everything. Chuck, tell us a little bit about.
Brian's going
Who's
to
your
pour
this,
some. I've nosed it a little bit, and it is exciting on the nose. Look, I won't go into all the detail. Okay, so O.K.I. It stands for Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana, and Indiana. This is a
Interesting.
you're going to have some 21% rye bourbon filled in 2007, 2008, and 2009. I won't bore you with the percentages. There's going to be some 36% of this is a rye bourbon. And okay, so when I say rye bourbon, it means it's a bourbon which is at least 51.
It's a blend.
Spicy.
No,
No, not blend.
This isn't a blend.
This
No,
is a
hush.
blend, but a 51% rye bourbon. I mean, when it says 36% rye bourbon, that means
That's very
that-
high. Yep.
that it's, well, that's the content of that product. But if it's bourbon, it's at least 51% bourbon, and the flavoring is rye.
The corn and all
Corn.
that, right? Yeah.
That's right. And then there's about 10% of it is 95% rye whiskey, and then a little bit of it is some corn whiskey, and then about a fourth of it is something just called light whiskey, bottled in 2007.
Is that
I
like
don't even
a
know
Hank
what
dinner?
this
Wow.
Some dude made it in his garage.
Yeah,
Rubbing
exactly.
alcohol.
Okay,
Interesting.
So this is the last
so
thing
it
that
is a
we
blend.
tried.
It is a blend.
Yes,
Okay,
it is a
admit
blend.
It's a blend.
We were coming to an end of the day. We were about to head back. We had this, and I took a drink, and it was like, okay.
This tastes great because
And-
I've had already a lot of other bourbon.
Exactly. So Kevin and I were talking. He said, you know, what was your favorite? I said, man, I don't know. That VanWinkle and the Kentucky Owl were so close. I don't know which one was the best. I'm gonna have to think about this. And I said, I love the Michters. That was great at lunch. And the O.K.I. was very pedestrian. Tastes like bourbon.
Sort of.
It was a little peppery for me. It was not my favorite. I'll be honest with you. Would I go? I bought this one today for the show,
Sure.
but would I buy it again just for me? Probably not. I would rather drink Bourbon Rabbi all day long.
How much is that bottle?
$100.
How much?
Is it really?
$100.
OKI is
I paid $100 for that bottle.
Oh my goodness.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well,
Yeah, it'll be
the
on your
show
bill.
is welcome.
Best
and-
nose,
and-
though,
and-
No,
of
it
all
is.
I have.
You know,
And this is the biggest reason why I hate like contract distillation, where you don't have anticipation of opening a distillery, because you're gonna pay $100 for something that's subpar, in my opinion.
it's got a pretty picture.
But do you hear what John Wilkie
Cincinnati.
says?
What'd you say?
It's got the
To
best
me,
nose.
this is the best nose of all of them that we've had.
Really?
How about that?
You know
what's-
what? My winery friend Hubert, who gave me the empty Pappy bottle, he had a saying, and he said that, and this was to wine, but I think it also applies to bourbon. He said, after 3 glasses, it's all the same.
I agree with
You know,
that.
it's funny.
This is not.
All right, so you guys want to hear something funny? This is named for Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana. You know, there is one town that gets its name from 3 states, but it's in none of those 3 states, and it's right across the river from Kentucky. Any guesses? Any guesses? It is Canova, West Virginia.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
Wow.
Named for Canova, Ohio, and
You
Virginia.
see, that's why we have Kurt Hamilton on the
That's
show,
right.
folks, because he
That's
brings that
originally from- I want
level
him to get
of
way
information.
off
Canova,
topic.
West.
Yeah.
It's
Do they
OKI,
make
3
whiskey in
states.
Canova? Because if they don't, I don't want to hear about
Probably.
it.
All right.
Kurt
What are they
Hamilton's
doing,
a
actually?
master of nickel knowledge.
That's
So-
right.
Yeah,
That's
nickel,
all we're good
nickel
for, man.
knowledge.
Does
That's right.
anybody like this? Does anybody say, hey, this is the best bourbon we've had?
I'm going to say this. I've never had a whiskey quite like
Let me
this.
try a little
Okay, that's
Let me
fair
try a
enough.
little bit more.
There you
that,
go.
that list of ingredients blows my mind.
So for me,
What's the point of mixing?
I think
all
there's
this?
too much going on. I'm not a fan of it.
Yeah.
I really don't care for it. Like,
That's a good way to describe it. Is there's a whole lot going on there.
Can we open the bottle of LuxRow, because that I've never had, and it's expensive bourbon, and I've heard plenty about it.
that's just for show.
And Brian, you brought that, right?
I did.
Can you tell
He brought
me
it
about
for us.
LuxRow?
Yes,
So
he did.
LuxRow, they own so before bourbon got cool, they owned a bunch of brands. They were in the bourbon business, vodka business, low end vodka business, low end spirits business.
They bought a bunch of brands.
So they sourced. Yeah, they bought a bunch of brands. They acquired a bunch of brands, but they didn't really.
Bunch of dead brands.
Yeah, they didn't really distill a whole lot of like bourbons. They're based out of St. Louis, and when bourbon got very popular, they bought land in Bardstown, LuxRow. So that's where this brand came from. 12-year-old bourbon sourced, obviously.
It's a beautiful location.
Beautiful location.
They do Blood Oath, right?
They do Blood Oath, which is also sourced. They do Ezra Brooks. They do
Rebel Yell.
Rebel Yell.
Now called just Rebel.
Rebel. And they do a bunch of low-end spirits. They actually got bought out by MGP about a year or two ago.
Within the last year.
Indiana,
Right.
which the only reason I believe, this is just me speaking, my opinion, the only reason I think that they bought them out is because they could put distilled in Kentucky as opposed to Indiana.
Right.
When you put Kentucky, that's hard to identify who is distilling that for you.
Mhm.
Nice.
Indiana, it's super easy to identify. You put Indiana, it's MGP all day, every day.
Really?
Yeah.
Even those little distilleries, like
Because there's no
Indianapolis.
contract distiller really other than MGP in Indiana. So everybody that sees distilled in Indiana, they assume it's MGP.
So what I think is
Which
interesting about
is
this-
they have great products.
They do.
Yeah,
they
sure.
have great products. The
Very cool
95% rye, that is all day O.K.I. That's MGP.
If you
They're
want to
known
hear
for-
their story, you can actually go to our Big Bourbon Club podcast episode, and they were the special guest at the Big Bourbon Club, and you could hear their representatives tell their story, right?
Exactly. For Luxco.
Look, make no mistake. MGP knows what it's
They
doing.
do.
Sure.
They're in the business of contract distillate before that was even a thing. I mean, they've been doing this since the 70s
If you
or
want
80s.
this mash bill, here's the price. If you want this mash bill, here's the price. If you want this mash bill, oh, you have your own mash bill? We'll have to work on the price, but
Right.
they
we
make
can still make it.
they
Right.
might find product.
Right.
As someone who's a bourbon tourist who loves to go to the distillery and hear that distiller story, that master distiller story, no shame to MGP at all. I love to go to, especially I've
It's a
said
factory.
the craft.
It is.
I love to go to the craft
I do
distillery
too.
Yeah.
and hear
Right.
the AJ's story
Right.
at Casey Jones.
And even if they're brand new, just own up to what you are.
Yeah.
You are what you are. Don't
Yeah.
just
it's
tell
For
your
all
story.
the bourbon tourists who are new to bourbon, we're looking at 6 bottles here, none of which are cheap bourbon. These are all 60 and up, and 3 of them are sourced. 3 of them
Really?
are sourced. Michter's,
or 4.
The
Oh,
Al-
VanWinkle, Michter's, and 3 Brothers are not.
O.K.I. is sourced.
O.K.I.
VanWinkle by definition is sourced.
yeah. VanWinkle is
From
Buffalo
Buffalo
Trace.
Trace.
VanWinkle has
Trace.
always
Yeah.
been sourced from the get go.
I'm corrected. So 2 of the 6 are original to the distillery.
Yeah.
So if you're going into a distillery and it's only been around for a couple years and they're selling you what they're calling 10-year-old bourbon, just know that whatever story they tell you on site, that bourbon's not being made.
But the
Yeah,
same holds
but-
true with wine. So I mean, you're a wine guy, Brad.
Very
Yes.
true. Very
So
true.
my wife just went to Napa, and one thing I didn't realize
That's
is that
true. You're
most of the wine is sourced because they have all these storms, devastation in Napa Valley. So a lot of their grapes and so forth are sourced from other wineries.
So,
You're right.
So
Great
my
analogy.
question is, how many of these bottles would you buy? I would buy 5 of the 6 again.
that's
You
a
know,
great question.
The only one that I wouldn't buy again is the O.K.I. Reserve.
It's an interesting question because some of these are very expensive bottles, and I drink enough bourbon that I can't buy expensive bottles because I need to be able to afford my bourbon. So, of these, I think that Michter's I like. I buy it all the time. I really enjoy it. If I was going to splurge, I think the Kentucky Owl is probably within my price range that I can find. The rest are hard to do. I'm really interested in the Three Brothers, and I know we're going to talk about that probably in a second if we get that far. But
we're going to get that far. Nobody's going to be listening, but we're going to talk about it anyway.
What I'm saying is, people, if you're listening, these are
Kurt Staff
six
will be
honest
listening.
guys who live in Kentucky who are talking about bourbon they like. And if you want to really hear the truth from people who drink bourbon, this is it. So here's of all the bourbons I tried, I'd buy the Michter's every day of the week because number one, it's affordable.
Yeah.
Number two, I can find it. And number three, I like it straight. I like it on the rocks. I like it in cocktails.
It's easy.
It's easy.
And that's what I love about bourbon. You and I disagree on, because I think that's the worst one of all of them, but we can all sit around here and talk about that and be respectful of one another. And I just didn't care for that.
I'm going to buy the Michter's and the Kentucky Owl.
Here's the great thing about
Kentucky
bourbon.
Owl, yeah.
It's not like American politics. You can disagree and you don't shoot each other.
If you disagree while you're drinking bourbon, it tends to all come out in the wash.
That's
because you're
fake
feeling
news.
good about it.
And
So,
as
I
I always say, if you don't like either bourbon or if you don't like a bourbon I like, what I say is that means more for me.
There you go.
The crazy thing is, I don't think I would go for the blends. No, maybe call me a snob or whatever, but
You're a snob.
I want to hear what you think. I'm a snob.
I hate you.
I don't want to blend.
They're all blends.
I don't want to blend.
I don't care. Whatever tastes
Straight
good,
from
I
the
don't care.
box.
But you
If
know,
you want to blend it, it
speaking
doesn't
of
matter.
blends, that Bartown Bourbon Discovery
Discovery
Series.
Series?
Oh
Yeah.
my God!
All
Very
blends.
good.
All blends,
And you like them.
I like it.
Go, man.
Amen.
So I have LuxRow in my glass. Somebody brought this. Tell me a story about LuxRow and why it's here.
Okay, so my wife and I
That's a good smell.
Uh,
That's a good nose.
went to LuxRow shortly after they opened. And
Give me that.
All right, so you're at LuxRow.
so we're at LuxRow, and my wife and I, that was about the time we were first getting interested into bourbon. And we tried LuxRow. At that time, 12-year, I mean, it was $150,
Woo!
which at that time, 5 or 6 years ago, was a lot of money.
Right.
For a bourbon. Nowadays, it's like, that's every new bourbon that's coming to the market. So we tried it, and we really enjoyed it, so we bought it. And that's been our bourbon. Every time that we have a success in life or we feel like we've accomplished something, that's the bourbon. that we-
Celebratory bourbon?
Yes, it
Yeah.
is.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's
So
really cool.
it's not
So
pappy.
you're
it's
drinking
not-
memories.
Yeah. So for she and I, that's the bourbon that we always drink. And I brought that because actually I got an extra one at the liquor store. So
Amen.
I didn't bring that from the house.
What
That's
time?
awesome.
I
That's
love what
cool,
Brent
though,
just
Brian.
said.
Seriously.
What
Drinking
time?
memories, I
Yeah,
love
that's
that.
exactly what it is.
What time's the store open tomorrow?
It depends which store.
You can camp out tonight. And break
You can
in.
camp out tonight,
There
yeah.
you go.
Break in tonight and throw a
Now this
cocktail if you want.
again, this is
Yeah.
a nose that just
This is a
So-
this is
120
very unique.
proof.
John loves this LuxRow.
I'm telling you what.
You
like
and
it, John?
Justina share this experience. It's your go-to celebratory
Every
bourbon.
time for whatever reason, her birthday, my birthday, Cap and Cork,
Right.
every
Let's talk
Let's
about Cap
talk
and
about
Cork for
Cap
just a
and-
second.
Yeah, bring it up.
I actually met John at Cap and Cork
Amen.
during one of the festivals.
Handy
The only
Man, what it was fantastic. The food was great.
every night.
Let
There was
Brian
something going
explain
on.
for our out of state listeners.
Sure.
Brian explain what he's doing because this is, I think, is a good story. Brian is a younger guy who's come into a new town, entrepreneurial spirit. Opened in the end 4 different liquor stores that serve terrific alcohols of all kind, and he's decided to expand on our riverfront, our beautiful riverfront in Henderson, and tell them what you're going to do.
So I own 4 liquor stores, and the one key to a liquor store business is on premise.
Mhm.
So for those of you that don't know what on premise is, it's people that consume alcohol at a restaurant or bar, and then they go to the liquor store and they ask for those products. So I felt that was a good way to get that business from, if I own my own business and can see the trends to see what people are drinking, consuming, and so forth. So convinced my wife after several months that we
Several
should
bottles of
be
water. She's the smart one.
she's a smart one. She tried to talk me down several times. Like, but
So you bought the best real estate in the city of Henderson, in my opinion.
Yeah, man.
yeah,
Yeah.
And it's so the bar is. I've seen the design.
It's beautiful.
You're keeping the historical small restaurant structure that's been on Water Street across the street from Audubon Mill Park in downtown Henderson, but then you're building something sort of on top of
over
it.
top of it. Yeah.
Yeah, what is it that you're building on? Is it a 2-level, 1-level situation?
It's definitely going to be a 2-level structure. The reason we kept that structure is because the restaurant is grandfathered in,
There
which
we go.
saves us about
bingo.
$60,000. So obviously money is a factor. We like the history of the structure. There's not a lot of history there. We reached out to the society that does the history
Historical
of
Society?
historical society. Yeah.
Mhm.
And they've told us a little bit about it. There's not a lot of history there. I was hoping there was, but basically it's been a single family residence until the 90s, and then that's when the restaurants
The Mezzaluna, for
Mezzaluna,
those of us who've
yeah.
been
Sure,
in Henderson.
sure.
for a while.
which I met the owner of that, which has been great. But so we're going to pay homage to the tobacco industry in Henderson from the 1800s.
Henderson.
Was huge. So
So let's have Chuck Stinnett
Oh, gosh.
remind us
We have
of
another
the
that
Henderson
All right.
Henderson's place in history with the tobacco market.
In episode 2, I've got to go to a football game here.
Do you need to leave? Do you need to leave, Brad?
You can't leave.
I do. I've heard this
Kickoff's
story
in
many
an hour and
times.
a half.
Henderson has a deep history in tobacco dating back
Yep.
to pre-Civil War. But if I might, if you don't mind,
Paid for my college education.
Brian's going to open a combination nice whiskey bar and cigar bar in downtown Henderson. And I think that will be a huge hit.
Yeah.
The two go together. And
They really do.
And for those of you who might visit Henderson in what do you say, 6 months? You might be
6
ready
months.
to go.
Yeah.
So late 2022, early
Yeah.
2023.
2023.
So you'll be able to
2023.
sample many of the bourbons we're talking about tonight.
And
Man.
so we've already started to collect some of the most rare bourbons you can get. Like
Wow.
I'm talking
That's
about
awesome,
Yeah,
Brian.
true
Tours.
unicorns.
And then have a really nice cigar.
A Cohiba, Cuban.
Yeah.
Cubano.
And,
Acids, even.
and in
Oh.
a well-ventilated area that's nice and clean and overlooks the Ohio River, it's going to be a unique experience.
And you had a soft open with the food, which I can tell you was freaking
Fantastic.
tastic.
Yeah.
I mean, we
Fantastic.
the
All of it.
sliders and the watermelon salad and all that kind of stuff was just really, really good.
And when I saw the architect's rendering, I said, "Oh my God, you guys have modeled this after like a 19th century distillery, haven't you?"
Yeah.
It's these multi levels. It's oh my gosh, it's so cool. It is an homage to 125-year-ago whiskey.
Not going to lie,
Good point.
I thought it was an homage to Kid Rock's honky tonk down in Nashville.
It does look like it, doesn't it?
Multi levels.
Yeah.
The honky tonk central. Gotta love it. So bands on every level.
So, as a fan of Henderson who tries to convince people to come here, our downtown is terrific.
It is.
Rocking.
It is clean. It looks like Mayberry, only with an edge. And one of the edges we have is great food, really nice bourbons available.
amazing festivals.
Good people.
And walkable
Good people.
places.
Yeah,
And
man.
This Captain
river.
Cork, which Brian's going to open, I think is going to be a must stop as you tour downtown in the
Yep.
evenings looking for dinner and a little something after dinner maybe.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy for you, and I'm excited as a Hendersonian that you're doing
Yeah.
it.
Put
So-
it on the American Queen stop.
Same.
Yes.
So
Indeed.
I'm happy to be here, obviously, and thankful for what you said. But the other thing is the people that are in power right now that allow business owners to do the things they do. I've had no issues whatsoever. Like I've talked to you,
Isn't that
Brad,
great?
personally, and please elect Brad. I'm just saying.
We've had, you know what?
There you
And
go.
you know, Brian, we've invested. My family's invested.
Oh, downtown
reinvested
with
in Henderson.
Airbnb.
We've
yeah.
been so blessed in Henderson, raising our kids, having a family. But I'm telling you, the last couple of years has been amazing. And people are coming here for vacation. They spend a week.
Yeah.
We've invested in a new Airbnb situation, the Sunshine Building. The perch area is going to look completely different by the time you open your restaurant on 2nd Street.
But there's been people that moved here because they came on the boat tours.
The boat, yes. We had 2 in town yesterday. And the cool thing is that we have people that are making a life here and doubling down and tripling down. They're reinvesting in Henderson, not doing things the small way, but doing things the big way, including the bridges. You know,
Exactly.
and it's a really, really neat thing.
To rein this back in for Brent because his head's about to pop off. But
Could you tell that across the room?
Best in line. It's a half-hour podcast.
Let me give you my best, and I will exit on that.
All right.
Glad I'm not editing this.
My last, and here's my best. Election night 2016, first time I had ever run for office. It's a crazy life to do it. I do, and other people do. But we won that night, and we were downtown, and there was a restaurant at the time called Commonwealth Kitchen and Bar, and they had Pappy on the bar. And several of my good friends, including a South African named Eric Hansen, who
Great guy.
was opening a business in Henderson, became a fast friend. We pulled him down there. He happened to be in town. And we said, bring the Pappy. And we ordered a flight of Pappies. He had only heard about it. We were celebrating, and we downed him fairly quickly. And he immediately told me, so this is how it's supposed to taste. Huh? I said, it's pretty good stuff. He goes, another. And you know, CKB was charging $40 a pour. And we did 3 flights. 3 flights of Pappy. All on the South African dude. And considering the celebratory atmosphere, the whole vibe, and the good bourbon, that was probably my best with Pappy. And I'll never forget it.
So good juice, good friends, good stories, good experiences.
If we can wrap up this tour, I think that's the theme. The bourbon you like will be the bourbon you have with friends like Kevin.
Amen.
And with good food and good vibes, and no matter what you like, it's always better with friends and in fun situations.
Amen and
That's right.
amen.
That's it.
You know what? If you're going to drink alone, drink Tito's.
Well, so I'm going to say one thing. So with you guys, my first experience with Pappy's was with my son at UK.
Cool.
So he turned me. So he turned me on. It was at a fraternity party that he was. He invited me to, and I was the old man at the fraternity party having Pappy's. That was my first experience with Pappy's. But being from El Paso, Texas,
I did not know that.
You didn't. I know. And we have a way of toasting things in El Paso and Juarez, Mexico that
right across the board.
That I always appreciate who we're with, and what we're doing in life, what we're doing.
Go, man.
So here is my toast to you guys.
Raise the glass.
And this is called my toast to you all. Con amor, and you can say it after me. Con amor.
Con amor. Con amor.
Paz. Peace. Pesetas. Money. Y tiempo para gastarlo.
What you
say.
said.
And time to enjoy it.
There you go.
Salud.
And with that being said, this is Distilled Bourbon Podcast. We ask that you subscribe to our channel. Hit that like button on whatever podcast format you have. And please drink responsibly.